Hello, everyone. My name is Lucinda Sperry. I'm from Warren County Economic Development. And today I'm coming to you from the City of Indianola's podcast studio. We're going to have a property tax discussion. Sounds pretty boring, right? But actually, we've been discussing this hot topic with our city and county leaders, and the discussion is getting kind of interesting. So before we get into it, we should have everybody introduce themselves here in the room. Let's start down here with Megan.
I am Megan Battani. I'm the budget director for Warren County.
I'm Ben Reeves, the city manager of Indianola.
I already introduced myself, so.
I'm Deven Markley. I'm the city administrator in Carlisle.
And Luke Nelson, city manager in Norwalk.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming here today to do this. I know we're not a big fan of being on video, but we've had this discussion several times, and it's been really interesting, and we wanted to share it with all of you. We talk about property tax notices several times individually, and so we were coming today. Why are we talking about this?
The property tax notices.
Yes.
The ones that are confusing.
Yes. Those.
Yeah. I think that's why we're here, is because they're confusing.
People have been talking about a property tax notice, but I believe the official name is School, County, and City Budget Year Statement to Owners and Taxpayers. That's a mouthful. Who created this document?
It started as a part of House File 718, done during the 2023 legislation. And that comes down from the state. And that is the purpose. The purpose of the document was to be informative and to inform the constituents about the property taxes.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, is that I know we're bound to say in these discussions some frustration with that document, but I do believe the state deserves some credit for it. Their attempt is to educate and inform people. That's always a good thing. That's what we try to do, even though we might disagree on the method and format, which is clearly the case here, but I think they had a good intent.
So what is the good part of this document?
Anytime we communicate with the people, that's a good thing. So sharing more information, that's a good thing. But when the information is not specific to a community, or it's shared that in such a manner that it creates confusion, that's not a good thing. So requirements that would tell a community, hey, you need to share some more information, that would be great. Making it so hard and specific, that makes it confusing for everybody all around.
The transparency component is definitely a good thing. In Iowa, taxes are very complex. Property taxes are very complex. So being able to break it down so that people understand that a portion of your taxes does go to a lot of different entities to cover a lot of different things, that inherently is a good thing, for sure, 100%. Everybody agrees on that. We've talked to administrators, managers around the state, and everyone agrees that transparency component is key, and it helps everybody have more confidence in government. But maybe the implementation of that can be a little better.
So that kind of sounds like the good, bad. Is there the ugly?
To me, the ugly part of this is that those documents that went out give most of the people an indication that their property taxes are going to go down. And that exists because they compare 100,000 in one year to 100,000 in the next year. But for the confusing part of property taxes that Deven just talked about, rarely is a property, even if you have a $100,000 home in one year, in the next year, it is often the case that that valuation will change even if you do nothing to your property. The taxable value changes because the rollback changes, because other sales of other homes change, causing the county assessor in some cases to adjust that value. So on that form, the ugly part is they compare 100,000 to 100,000. And in doing that, they don't take into account the rollback changing and also the fact that valuations went up during those 2 years. So it's just painting a picture that doesn't exist.
That's exactly it. I mean, your home changes because of the market value in general. And so as the market value goes up, even though the rate might be going down, your overall amount that you're paying is going to end up being higher. And so it creates this inherent confusion that people think that their taxes are going to go down because this notice that they received said it will go down. But next year, when they get their tax statement, it's going to go up. And then they're going to be very upset at their local governments.
Right.
I think they'll be upset and confused, which leads to more questions and more distrust and things like that. It complicates the issue further and really compounds the distrust and the confusion in an already complex equation.
All right, I'm going to take my answer back and go with Deven. It's the ugly is the distrust. I think that's the worst part.
Yeah.
Without intending it, that's
Right.
part of what could be caused.
Right. So what advice would you give to the people who have created this document?
Well, I'm going to turn to Luke because Luke did an exceptionally good job in the city of Norwalk putting a great calculation together saying, what was your home's worth this year and what is your home anticipated to be worth next year? And it takes you through the actual calculation so you can figure out what your taxes are going to be compared to what it was last year. And that kind of transparency really makes it an easy answer for the public in general. But we're turning all of our residents into mathematicians. And that's what's really kind of challenging about all this.
And I'd love to take credit for that. Thank you, Ben. But it really was the Department of Management. Ted Nellison and his team put together a simple Excel file that you can go in and plug in those numbers. I really think that the solution would have been the state legislature saying to the Department of Management, hey, you guys know math. You know what people are looking for. You have good communication. Ted comes and presents to the League of Cities, to all the cities every year. He does a great job. I think he could have worked with cities to say, what do you think is a good way to put this out? Give them a couple years to implement it so they take plenty of time to vet different opinions. And I think the Department of Management could have came up with a great solution.
I think to piggyback on that a little bit, I think it's engaging your stakeholders. You have administrators, managers, Ted Nelson at the state. There's a lot of very good people who are doing a lot of very good things in government. And making sure that you're listening to them and getting their feedback on things before we move forward with the implementation, that normally results in a better outcome. We all deal with local government. We all know that that's the case. When you have more input from people who care and have a vested interest in it, you should get a better result. So.
And I think one good piece of information that was on it is everybody's public hearing dates. So I think focusing on that, and because once you get the community to the meetings, we're all there to explain what's going on with our budgets, what's going on with our levy rates. You know, we have the visuals to help break it down to the community. So getting the community to our actual public meetings, that's one good thing that I think was listed on there was those dates and times.
That's a good point.
I think it's important for the state to recognize that we're all in it together. They're not the enemy. We're not the enemy. The county's not the enemy. But we've kind of set ourselves up in a situation where, hey, we're the state. We're going to lower taxes. Now it's local government's fault that's going up. And local government goes, hey, the county changed the assessment because the market went up. So we're all doing this finger pointing to each other. When in all reality, we could sit down collectively at every level of government and figure out the best way to take care of our tax needs to make sure that we can provide the services to our residents that they deserve, but do so in a very transparent manner and communicate well together. So that's the purpose of us coming together today, to talk about this and how to make it more understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think now that we've had kind of a good example with what, Luke took and used for a calculation, a lot of the cities were working on having them to have their own calculation area kind of thing. And we're compiling a lot of that information to put on a landing page website. We'll probably house it at www.wcedc.com and include some of the other information to contact you. Because if someone if you had a chance to talk to each taxpayer, what would be your elevator pitch? What would you say to them?
Oh my gosh. For me, it's easy. It's simply telling people if they want their taxes to go down, they got to think of what services they can do without. Anytime you hear from somebody that says we can lower your property taxes, if they're not telling you the services that are going to be reduced to go along with it, you're not getting the whole story. So That's the 30 seconds. The other part of it is that we love hearing from people. If we had citizens show up at every council meeting and just ask a couple questions, hey, what's this? What's that? We would love to answer those. If we had people that came in and said, I want you to spend money here and not here, people would be shocked at just one or two people showing up at a elected board of supervisors meeting. It's the same way. That has an impact.
Yeah, I think that's what I would get across to a citizen too, is coming to the meetings. Or if you can't come, I know ours, and I'm guessing a lot of yours, they're online. You can watch them. You can review minutes later. And then it becomes easier to understand what the reasoning behind all of these decisions are, or not to understand and see who's talking about it at the meeting and reach out to them. And like Luke said, we're happy to explain things and talk to the citizens. And our goal is always to make things better. But it is true. If you want your taxes to go down, then something has to be given for that to happen.
Right. Well, is there anything else for the good of the cause that you guys want to bring up or talk about on this topic?
I think there's two things. For every dollar that you pay, a lot of times people don't know where that dollar goes. And I think there's two pieces of information that's really important. For every dollar that you pay in property taxes, to what entities are those dollars going? And then for every dollar that we, the City of Indianola, collect, how are we spending it? Public safety, public works, recreation, whatever it might be, library. All of those things are services that people want. And so I think it's a really important thing to let people know what the services are so that they can understand where their dollars are going. And one of the things that we have done in my last community and started to do here with our elected leaders when they're thinking about running for office is something called Indianola University. And one of the things that we do is we actually sit down with those who are thinking about running for office and we play Monopoly. Here's some dollars. How are you going to spend those? Where do you want to put those? Then they turn the dollars over and nope, this is a street dollar. It can only be spent on streets. You can't spend that over here. and suddenly they realize the constraints that local government is under based on the laws that are provided to us.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're right, Ben. I think part of what we want to do is educate the public. That's sort of the reason that this whole document was here. So I think if people would take the time, and it doesn't have to be a lot, to really engage either in a meeting or call Luke or call your mayor or email your council member and say, hey, how are my tax dollars broken down? You'll probably get a very good explanation. And I would charge that you would be very surprised at the amount of things that one single tax dollar is broken down into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And like Ben said, there are a lot of things that road use tax can only be used for certain things. I think people just don't understand that, which is part of why we're trying to do this and we try and educate the public is there are limitations and there are reasons why we can't fix that pothole in front of your house today. We may be able to get to it next year, but we'll see what the budget looks like and what constraints there are. So,
I want to go back to what Ben brought up about that property tax dollar, hoping that that's a diagram or something we can get put up in the background. We went through a little bit of education with our council, but realizing it's on video. Megan, you brought that up. People can go out and watch these through YouTube or some other means. We showed the property tax dollar, and of that, I think it was 38%. I'm trying to think back to what my exact numbers were, but of that property tax dollars, the 38% that comes to the city. And then we went a step further and we said, okay, of that 38% that comes to the city, half of that goes to emergency services. So the average citizen might say, hey, I don't want to mess with emergency services. So that takes you down to 16% of that property tax dollar. And when you look at what that amount is that goes to the city from the property tax bill that you pay, all of a sudden you start to say, that's not very much. So to have a major impact on the budget, you realize you're really pulling from a very small portion of the budget.
Well said. Well, I think if that's everything, we really appreciate all of you coming together to kind of show a united front that we all care and we want to inform the public about this document and other things when they're related to the city. And all of the leaders here, and I know leaders from our other communities in Warren County, are available for you to get in contact with. We'll have those names and information listed if you want to get it off there, or you can go to your city website and find it as well. So with that, I think thank you for all of you coming today and doing this, and I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting it all together.